Alright, what's good guys? IG Squad here and welcome back to the next IG Squad summer vlog. This is week 2 starting May 8th, Monday, May 8th. And this week is going to be exciting. I'm hyped for it. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first things first, you may see a little bit of a difference in quality from majority of Vlog 1 and a lot of the most recent, phone diving adventures videos and stuff like that. I am going to be recording this video entirely on my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Going to be recording on the front camera, recording 4K at 30 frames per second. I can do 4K at 60 frames per second on this front camera, but that's going to eat up a lot, and I don't want to really do that. Trying to do a space saver, and the iPhone does not save space at all. But anyways, that's besides the point. We got a fun week coming up. So this week, there's a lot going on. So right now, I'm editing the last vlog to try and put it up today. I said that I was going to put it up Sundays originally, but I'm actually going to be putting it up Mondays, just to space out the specialty videos and the vlogs a little bit more. Mondays may not make a ton of sense to a lot of people, but I actually think it's going to work out. So we're going to give it a shot, see how it works. The next phone diving adventures, or the current phone diving adventures, is up right now. And then this Saturday, we're shooting the next phone diving adventures with Carson. So that'll be a ton of fun. You guys will sort of be able to see a behind the scenes of that. What we do, how we do it. Of course, not going to reveal locations or anything, but you'll see that, and there will be obviously an official Phone Diving Adventures episode. But anyways, that's still a couple days away. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun. We're actually going to a Pirates game. We're taking on the Colorado Rockies. The Pirates had an amazing start to the season, but they've lost their last 7 games, which is not good. But the Rockies are pretty bad, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, that's all I've got here. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so today is the day we head to the Pirates game. We still have time before we have to leave. It's just about 12 o'clock and the game's at 6:35. So yeah, we got time. I haven't really done much today. It's been a pretty chill morning. So I was probably just going to keep working on the collection update, to be honest. So I'm going to do that. All right, so we're getting ready to head out to the game pretty soon. I got the shirt, I got the hat, looking good. Hopefully they can win tonight. They did shut out the Rockies in the opening game last night, 2-0. Keller's first career shutout. Who is it pitching tonight? It's Luis Ortiz pitching tonight. I don't know if it's his first career start or what. He was just recalled from AAA, so we'll see. But let's go see how it goes. Gets the walk. Wait, B-Ray's still out there?
Wear a mask.
How many times has he fouled?
You won't see her.
Oh! Well, that didn't go well at all. Pirates lost 10-1 to the Rockies. I want to know how. I want to know how that's even possible. The Rockies are terrible. Like, yeah, they've been playing pretty decent as of late, but they're terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the MLB. Like, make it make sense. All right, so I haven't vlogged in 2 days. Really didn't do it a ton yesterday, but what I did do is I'm going to try to put in camera samples for all my phones in the upcoming collection update. That may sound a little bit extra, but I wanted to give it a shot. So for the phones that I can just sync, photos to Google Photos, it's no problem. But for the phones that that can't do that anymore, that need SD cards, we're gonna give that a shot. Even including the dumb phones, we're gonna give it a try, see if it works. So let's go give it a shot. All right, so I just got this in from Amazon. It's a organizer for my mass amount of SD cards. You can fit both full size and micro SD cards in there, which is really nice. So I'm definitely gonna be using this. It's got this sort of fake carbon fiber shell, so it's kind of difficult to identify what it is, but yeah, I'm sure this will work pretty well. So let's go throw some cards in it and see how it looks. All right, so these aren't all my cards, but I started throwing a few of them in there, and yeah, this is pretty nice to have everything just kind of sitting there. So I have full-size cards, and then I have a couple of micro SD cards down here, but you can actually stack them. So this is my main film card right here, this Samsung Evo. And I can go ahead and place the adapter on top of it, so I know that that is the card that I need that to access this card. Okay, so I just finished up this camera test, and I wanted to do sort of like a blind reaction. I'm not going to show you the photos. You're going to have to wait for the collection update to come out to see all of them. But I actually think these are pretty interesting. So I'm going to do sort of a blind reaction. So let's see. Okay, so just for reference, I don't know how much this matters, but I'm looking off of a full 1080p monitor. It's 23 inches, so that's just a reference point. And we have phones that are as old as, I think, 2006 up to 2021. So it's a wide range of stuff. So let's just take a look at what we have in terms of all this. So we're gonna start. Some of the camera numbers aren't so easy to tell. Some of the camera specifications. So this first one is titled 1.3 megapixel. I'm pretty sure that is the Motorola Razr V3M, if I had to take a guess. So let's see what we've got here. Oh man, that is... Old camera. That's an old camera. So if we're looking at it, yeah, it just struggles so bad with like motion blur, and obviously it's such an old camera. It's not gonna have any sort of stabilization. Youch. Yeah, and there's like no dynamic range. Yeah, this shows its age like a lot. Okay, so this next one is 2.0 megapixel, which that could actually be one of three phones. It could be the Motorola Rival, the W418G or the fake Rolla, or the Motorola Barrage. So I'm gonna like sort of try and source through the folders and see what I can find. So let's see what we've got. I'm just gonna try and look through file names here. So this is 19. Okay. I think that one is the Barrage, if I had to take a guess. Maybe not. Is that the fake Arola? No, how many photos matching that? No, so yeah, it's gotta be the Barrage. Alright, let's take a look at this. So this is a different photo. Shows its age, but honestly the quality, it's not horrible. You can make out what you're trying to see in the photo. There's not a ton of detail, and it looks like there's it's like watered down, so that's not great. Yeah, I have no idea how many of these are the Barrage, the 418. Okay, so this one's definitely a little bit better. I'm pretty sure we're shifting now over to the Rival. That's actually not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but you can the brick that's in the foreground, that actually has some decent dynamic range. Yeah, there's so many elements of these older photos that are so overexposed and just don't look good at all. Yeah, I mean, actually that's not bad at all. So this is taken through a window. That actually looks kind of decent when you're looking at it from the main view. That's not bad at all. Wow. Let me see. Can I do a file name match on that? 20, 22, 11, 20. I want to say that's the Rival. No? Is that the Barrage? No way. That's the fake Arola. No, there's no files matching that. Okay, so the file naming is all screwed up. I'm not sure which one is which. Okay, so now we're moving over to the HTC Droid Incredible 4G LTE. This guy right here. Now, yes, I have two of them, so I took the same shot on both of them, just in case there was some sort of variable between the two cameras. Okay. So it's really over sharpening it like a lot. And it's underexposing a lot of the foreground and overexposing all the wrong parts of the background. But like with the main subject that you're trying to catch, it's just over sharpening it like crazy. Yeah, same thing there. Okay, this one's a little bit better. It's a little bit of a warmer color tone. It is still over sharpening, but a little bit better, I guess. Yeah, same thing here. And then that goes back to a pretty neutral tone. And then move into the inside shot. It's just really over sharpening it like crazy. Wow. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be a thing with older HTC phones. The photos look pretty decent when you're looking at them in the normal view, but they're so over sharpened, like to the point where it almost makes the photo not look that great. Okay, now we're moving on to the Alcatel Apprise. This little hunk of shit right here. Oh boy, let's take a look at this. So for some reason, it's a single lens camera, but it has three different settings. It has a 1x, a 2x, and a 4x mode. Obviously, the 2x and 4x are digital zoom. But it's like it's there as like a toggle. It's not like just a traditional like pinch and zoom. which is very strange. I've never seen that before with a single lens. Okay. Tons of exposure issues. This phone came out in 2020, so this is why I'm not impressed at all. Dynamic range is basically non-existent. It's doing the main subject. It's doing okay with exposure, but it's really overexposing the background like really hard. It's a tricky shot, I'll give it that, but it's really having trouble. That seems to be a theme. So this is moving on to the 2x, which is just... It's softening it like crazy. Like, I don't know if I took too many 4x shots. So this is the inside shot. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look terrible when you're looking at it in the main view, but it's really, really not that good. It's really underexposed in the subject. There isn't really too much in this shot to overexpose. I mean, the parts that it can overexpose, it did overexpose. But, alright, 2x shot. And we do have a 4x shot here, and good God, that's horrible. Yeah, it just loses all detail. Like, you can see the individual pixels when you zoom in on it. Here, now, I'm looking at these inside of Lightroom Classic, and it's, yeah. Alright, 2020. Yeah. Also, going back on, let's actually just give them a bit of a grade, just based out of 10. The Razer V3M, I mean, because of its age, I mean, there's not much you can say. I give it like a 4 out of 10. It's hard to compare it to new smartphone cameras because it is the oldest in this test, I believe. So that's not great. When it comes to what I think is the Barrage, not great, considering we're putting it side by side with another camera that has a very similar sensor, and that looks considerably better. So I give the Barrage like a 3 out of 10. It's really not good. As far as the Rival goes, I mean, these shots don't look that great, but they have a lot more color inside of them, which is nice. It's not like it's a little bit oversaturated, but it's not terrible. So I'd probably give that like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 5.5. It's not terrible. I'm honestly not sure if any of these are the W418G. Let's see. Let's go to the Figueroa folder here. I don't see the file name. It doesn't even have it doesn't have metadata. Although that's one of the smaller photos. Still doesn't have metadata. Okay, so it's gonna go into unknown camera. All right, so none of those are the 418G. That's fine. Okay. For the HTC Droid Incredible LTE here, 5 out of 10. They're decent looking photos, but they're just, some of these shots are just so over sharpened and just complete misses on exposure, on the proper exposure in some elements. It's just, it's a weird mix of stuff. And the Alcatel Apprise, 2 out of 10. This, I mean, for a phone that came out in 2020, this is pathetic. Literally some of the worst photos I've ever seen on a modern smartphone. Absolutely horrible. And now we're going to go ahead and grade a couple of Blackberries. So I have a bit of a range of Blackberries here. So the first one is the BlackBerry Curve 8520. So we can also officially prove that it's an 8520 because it came up as the 8520 in the metadata, so that helps. So let's take a look at this. Okay. Shows age. That's not great. It's like, it's trying to over sharpen, but it's so, the detail just in general is so low, like it can't do much over sharpening even if it wants to. It's also really biasing really cool, which is Sometimes it depends on, for my photo editing, for like when I'm taking my photos professionally, sometimes I like to have that, but often I don't. So it looks like it's really pulling a lot of cool tones out of some elements of the photo, which is not ideal. Yeah, this interior shot, it's really like attempting but failing to over sharpen because this camera quality is just really, really low. Yikes. That's okay. I feel like 4.5 out of 10 because it's low quality and it's biasing, especially in these outdoor shots. It's biasing that really cool tone and kind of just making it look really strange. Yeah, 4.5 out of 10. Okay, the next one is the Curve 9370. So I think this should be a different sensor than the 8520. I think most of the rest of them, except for the last BlackBerry, is the same sensor. So the 9370 here, let's see. So it didn't come up with any sort of specs in terms of what we're looking at. Okay, so this is an improvement. I'll say that there is some dynamic range. It's not a huge amount, but it looks okay. But it looks really like it's really soft in a lot of areas. It actually did, in terms of foreground, it did pretty well in terms of exposure. Not the best I've seen yet, but actually, out of what I have seen here, yeah, it probably is the best. But other than that, it's okay. It's definitely okay. I wouldn't use this photo today, but this isn't bad. Inside shot, honestly, it's not horrible. It's not really trying to do anything too stupid. It's not like over sharpening or really anything. That's not that bad. That's really not that bad. And this is kind of a low light shot, so it's trying to do as much processing in the kind of little amount of light it has, at least to a certain distance. These are pretty challenging shots I'm throwing at these cameras, so they're fairly complex. But yeah, honestly, 6 out of 10. This is really a big improvement over the 8520. And now that we're starting to see some of that dynamic range, it's really not that bad. All right, now we have the BlackBerry Torch 9860. So let's see what we have here. Ooh. You know what? That's pretty damn good. Exposure, it handled it well. There's actually some pretty decent dynamic range here. It's not doing anything stupid. That's a big improvement over the 9370. That's actually really solid. Huh. Okay. So it's still dealing with some exposure problems. That's not bad. There really is some pretty solid dynamic range here. This looks good. Yeah, it's got the exposure problems, especially with the sky, but that's really not bad at all. Moving inside. Okay, so it's struggled a little bit here, but still, from a distance, looking at it, it's still not that bad looking. I'm kind of impressed, actually. I was thinking this was going to be pretty much the same as the 9370, but this is an improvement. Wow. I'm impressed. I don't know what the specs of this camera are. I don't know what the specs of most of these cameras are, to be honest, except for like one or two of them, maybe. I don't have the specs on paper. But yeah, this BlackBerry Torch camera is actually solid. Would I use it today? Probably not, because obviously it's a pain in the ass to get the photos off the phone, but that's wow. Besides the exposure issues, I wouldn't have to do many edits to that. That's really pretty solid. It's a 2560 by 1920 resolution too, so that's that's helping in its favor. What's the 9370? Same resolution, but this just looks a lot better. Yeah, that's impressive. Also, grade for this, honestly, 7.5 out of 10. I'm really impressed with how this looks. All right, now we have the BlackBerry Bold 9930. Now, no, I did not take it on all 17 of them. That would have taken way too long and just been a huge problem. So I only took it on the one that I have, the single one that I have that's on Verizon. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. They're all the same model, so they should all have the same sensor. Okay, so this is pretty much the same as the... Actually, honestly, I'd say it's a little bit worse than the 9370. It's a lot worse than the Torch. Okay, that's an improvement from that one to one. So this first one here, this almost looks very similar to the 8520, where it's like it's biasing it really blue. Yeah, it's definitely over sharpening it still, but there's some dynamic range there, and it's underexposing a lot of the parts, although that could honestly just be a sun thing. The sun could just be coming in to the frame a little bit, so I don't know how much it picks up on all the other cameras. So it's okay, but it's definitely worse than the Torch. I can say that much, but I'd say most of these photos are pretty on par with the 9370 and that first one. I'd say maybe a slight bit worse. Inside shots, yeah, these are pretty much the same photo coming off of the 9930 compared to the 9370. There isn't really much of a difference. Now you have older photos. Okay, so what did I rate the 93? I think it was a 6, so I'm gonna give this a 5.5. Because honestly, looking back through all of them, at least the outside shots, it does have that cooler bias tone, which is not great to see. I don't really think the 9370 had that as much of an issue. It's not as extreme. So 5.5 for the 9930. It's not terrible, but it could use some help. And the last of the Blackberries is the BlackBerry Z10. Now, I have 3 Z10s that I can use, and I did take photos on all of them. So, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be pretty similar, but let's see. Holy, whoa! This is actually really solid. So let's zoom in here. That is, wow, there's a lot of detail there. There's a ton of dynamic range. That is really, really solid. Still has the exposure problems, but it's getting better. There's a little bit of a motion blur issue in this one, but it's improving in this one. And actually, the exposure issues kind of fix themselves. Although there's some sort of weird motion blur going up at the top here. It's kind of like weird motion blur kind of throughout. There isn't really, I think that's just the one thing that the Z10 struggles with. It just doesn't have really any sort of stabilization. And the Z10 does have HDR, but it's an older form of HDR, so it's just taking multiple exposures. And it takes a hot second to process an HDR photo. It's like you have to hold it there for, I'd say, a good 5 to 10 seconds to get it to really sort of process and capture that HDR photo, which isn't the funnest thing in the world to do, but it's doable. But I have fairly shaky hands, so it can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. But honestly, the colors, they're very well balanced. While they're pretty well balanced, I'd say maybe a little oversaturated, but not terrible. It does really solid on the actually, on the first view, it's doing pretty well on exposure in the foreground. It gets a little bit worse once you move through, once I'm sort of moving the angle up. But that's really solid. Okay, so this inside shot, it's not great. Let's move. Actually, that's a little bit better. I think it's still sort of struggling in low light. These are HDR photos as well, so I think it's still sort of having that low light. But honestly, it's not terrible. It's really not terrible. Is that even the Z10? That might be another phone. Honestly, I need to verify that because zooming in like that should not be part of the Z10. Okay, so this is the one that I took today with the newest one because I just charged that one overnight. It's okay, so moving on to this one. Definitely oversaturated and overexposed, but it's really captured. Okay, this one's a bit better. Actually, that's this Z10. The BlackBerry Z10 camera, I think, is underrated. This is solid. I'm gonna say the inside shots dock it a little bit, but 7.7.5 out of 10. This is solid, like really, really solid. I'm impressed. All right, now we're back to the ultra cheap donkey shit smartphones. We have the CoolPad Catalyst. Now, from initial testing in some of these photos, I actually thought it looked pretty okay while biasing a little cool. But let's take a look at what we got here. Yeah, that's not what I remember. Wow, that is horrible. Okay, so super crunchy, this looks like a fucking potato. This is a potato. Overexposed as hell, there's absolutely no detail. God, that's horrible. That is actually one of the worst photos I've ever seen. That gets a little bit better, but there's still no dynamic range at all. Wow. This is not what I remember at all. This is a 5 megapixel camera, which obviously isn't great. Megapixels aren't everything, but I think it's like, let's see the resolution, 2592 by 1944. That's, by today's standards, that's pretty low. But yeah, that's bad. That's 1.5 out of 10. That's awful. Holy hell. Especially, I was taking these first few in the full mode, which I think decreases it down to like 3.9 megapixels, and that's still a 1920 by 1080 shot. But Jesus Christ, that is terrible. Yow. All right, now we have the HTC Droid Ares. So I did capture on both of mine. So let's see what we got. I did take it on 2 separate days. No, I didn't actually, but I took them in 2 separate groups. So the timing should be pretty different. Anyways, okay, what do we have here? We have kind of just like an older looking version of what you see on the Incredible. Just a ton of over sharpening, over processing. There isn't really too much processing going on these older Android phones, but really, oh man, this struggles badly with exposure, like a lot. Yikes. I mean, I can't blame it too much because this phone is from 2009, so it's not terrible for its age, but when you look at it right now, it just looks like a potato cam. Is it better than the CoolPad Catalyst? Yes. Would I use this over CoolPad Catalyst? Likely. But is it a great photo by today's standards? No. But it's okay, I guess. Because of its age, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. But actually, 3.5 out of 10. It's alright, but yeah, it still has that over sharpening issue that HTC phones tend to have. I want to get some newer HTC phones to try and put them side by side, but I really don't have that right now. So we'll see. We are filming Phone Diving Adventures tomorrow, so maybe we can do it. we'll see. But anyways, not terrible, but not great. 3.5 out of 10. It's all right. It's okay. All right. So now we have the Huawei Ascend Plus. I've had this one for a pretty good amount of time now, like about 3 years, and I've done some pretty extensive testing with it. I even put it through a blind smartphone camera test on Instagram. So yeah, so I sort of know what this looks like. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about like the Huawei Ascend Plus camera. So this, more than any other phone that I've seen, even like any older phone, this struggles so badly with trying to keep it stable. Like, even if your hands are still, it's still gonna somehow struggle. Like, it's like, it wants you to know that there's no stabilization in this camera. Still struggles with exposure in both the background and the foreground. Oh my god. But there's just motion blur for days, and it's really struggling with these inside inside shots to capture light. This phone came out in 2014, by the way, so this is pretty pathetic for a phone that came out in 2014. 2 out of 10, honestly. Like, by 2014 standards, this is bad, and by 2023 standards, this is complete and utter ass. Yeah, 2 out of 10. It's not good at all. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to some iPhones, and we're gonna start with my iPhone 6S. Now, I did take it on both my iPhone 6S and my 6S Plus, and because the 6S Plus does have that OIS, the 6S doesn't. I think there's a bit of a slight difference. It's not major, but let's take a look at what we have. Oh, man. Even today, the iPhone 6S camera looks still really good. It does have some exposure problems with some elements, but there's a lot of dynamic range. The detail looks good. It's oversaturating maybe to the slightest, but this camera still looks really good. Okay, so this one's a little overprocessed, specifically. Oh yeah, these are HDR shots. I forgot the 6S shot HDR. Okay, so that's why it's overprocessed. So it's struggling with light a little bit when you move to the inside shots, but it's not horrible. Let's zoom in here. Detail is okay. But yeah, it's not having the most fun of time in low light. And even the phones that have night mode available, I didn't use it in these low light shots because it just didn't make a ton of sense, to be honest. So yeah. Okay, so let's move on to this 6S Plus, just to see if we can really notice any difference. Not much. It's pretty. These cameras, I mean, it's the same sensor minus that OIS, at least from what I know. I mean, obviously it still looks really good. It's doing maybe just a slight bit better with exposure on the 6S Plus. HDR handles it about the same, I'd say. And still has that sort of low light struggle once you get into inside. Yeah, I mean, these cameras, the 6S cameras still hold up really, really well today. So because of the exposure issues that were on the standard 6S, I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. But if it didn't deal with those exposure issues, this would easily get an 8 out of 10. This looks great. All right, now we have the iPhone 7. So I did take it on both my iPhone 7s, my black one and my silver one. I took it on the silver one first, so let's see what we got here. Okay, so great amount of actually, that one's not amazing. That one actually kind of struggled. Lost a bunch of dynamic range. Okay, that's a little weird. It doesn't look amazing. I'm gonna really zoom in here. It looks like it just pulled out a lot of the dynamic range. It does, although moving inside here, it's doing a lot better with low light. Not in the, but actually surprisingly not in the HDR shots. It's doing a lot better with low light in the main shots, which is kind of weird. Okay, here we go. Moving on to the black one. Yeah, this is better. This is better. The 7 was almost making it look like the skies. It was like it almost made it look like it was like overcast, which is a little bit weird. Not really sure why, but yeah, it's kind of odd. But that doesn't look too bad actually. Actually, that looks really good, and it really sort of fixed the exposure issues with the sky that the 6S had. You can clearly tell that them skies are blue, and it looks good. It looks really good. Still has some foreground exposure issues, but that may be because of the angle I'm taking it at. It really is sort of trying to pull all the light from the background that it can, and really focusing on that. So, not too bad though. And it's doing pretty well with light, while the elements that you have to see in terms of light are a little soft, if I'm being honest. At least on the black one here, I'd probably give that to the silver one, but it's still fairly soft, honestly. But the iPhone 7 camera is still really solid. Give it an 8 out of 10. I would. It looks good. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to the iPhone 8. I ended up taking photos on both my iPhone 8s, my gold one and my space gray one. So let's see what we have here. Wow. See, I don't think a lot of people realize this. The year-to-year improvement in cameras from the 7 to the 8 was such a dramatic difference. Like, it was a big improvement. The 8 camera, I think, is one of the better iPhone cameras to date. Like, this looks really solid. Dynamic range on this one specifically is suffering just a little bit, but that could just be an HDR thing. Actually, not really. It's really, really good. Brings in a ton of color, even in like the really far parts of the background that you can't even see that much. It brings in a ton of color, maybe slightly oversaturated, but oh, this one is really solid. Like there's just a ton of detail in that one. That looks really nice. Like, wow. The iPhone 8 camera really was something special. Like, it was, I think it's one of the best iPhone cameras. And then moving to the inside shot, maybe struggles a little bit with low light, but I mean, honestly, this is really not bad at all. This looks really solid. Like, but there's just so much detail. Like, I'm never gonna stop talking about how much of a difference it is from the iPhone 7 to the iPhone 8. It was such a huge improvement. Okay, so I'm sort of skipping around here a little bit. All my iPhones are, kind of jumbled up, and the naming system is, not the most ideal thing in the world. So now we have the original iPhone SE. I took it on both my SEs. I'm not gonna take them out right now because I don't know where in the box they are. But I took it on both my silver one and my space gray one. There is a good amount of detail. Like, it's really, but it's actually struggles hard with the exposure. Like, I may be taking it kind of the wrong angle here, but that is a big issue with the exposure. Like, it's really sort of suffering there. Huh. Weird. But yeah, there is a really solid amount of detail. Like, there's good dynamic range. The iPhone SE camera was underrated too. This is really good. Moving into the inside shot, struggles a bit with low light, but not that bad. HDR is kind of helping. That one's a little bit biasing a little bit warm, but not like super hard. Oh, look, this one. This one looks a little bit soft. Took a lot of the same shot, but yeah. They look really, really solid. The iPhone SE camera is really good. I mean, it's pretty much the same camera that you get in the 6S. It is the same camera you get in the 6S, so it was a good camera. It was a really good camera. I would still say not as good as Galaxy S7, but really, really close. Okay, now we have the iPhone XR, and this was actually using this one was actually kind of my whole inspiration for doing the whole camera test, because my iPhone XR has a cracked camera lens, and I just wanted to illustrate that it doesn't have any problems with that. God, the iPhone XR camera is so good. It's actually really, really solid. Like, has no exposure issues. It pulls all the colors just so tightly together. Like it really, the color spectrum and range on the iPhone XR is just so nicely put together. Like, that is so good looking. And it does really well in low light. That is one of the things that iPhones have done so well with for such a long time are these low light photos. At least, since probably the iPhone 8, honestly. Maybe even iPhone 7. Like, this looks really, really solid. Fine detail. And the iPhone XR camera is actually a pretty, a decently wide angle. It's 4.25 millimeter focal length. Not super wide, but still actually wider than the main camera on some of the newer iPhones that have the dual system. I missed a couple ratings. So iPhone 13, or I didn't even do the 13 yet. iPhone 8, that 8 out of 10. Really, really good. iPhone SE, because of the exposure struggles at the angle I was taking it at, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's good. It's a really nice quality photo, but it's just the way it's handling exposures at certain angles is just really, really concerning. And then the iPhone XR, 8.5 out of 10. It's so nice looking. I said iPhone 13. Let's move on to that iPhone 13. And, oh man. Okay, so it's almost like so I'm taking this at a really close angle, which is kind of a dumb move on my part, because it's kind of it's trying to blur out the background. Like, it thinks it's trying to take a portrait mode photo, I think, which is not really what it's supposed to be doing, but I get what it's trying to go for. This one sort of fixes it a little bit, but it's still kind of a blurred background, which, I mean, I like that style, but it's not what I was going for. Moving over to the ultra wide here. There's a good amount of detail on the ultra wide. I think the 13 is when Apple really started to pay attention to the ultra wide, because I'd say in both the 11 and the 12, it was good, but it was having a lot of trouble. It was having a ton of trouble in low light, and it was kind of struggling to really capture like a ton of detail in a single frame, whereas the 13 really sort of stepped that up in a big way. Now, I don't have an iPhone 11 or 12 to really, prove that, but from what I've seen in other YouTubers' camera tests, it's kind of been that way. But this ultra wide is really, really solid. I think I have 2 or 3 other ultra wides in this test. And then moving on to the interior shot. I mean, it still doesn't have, the highest quality low light photos. It is a bit soft, but I mean, the lighting at my house is absolutely terrible, so I applaud it for, at least capturing some of it, and not sort of doing like a spotlight effect on the subject. The 13 camera is just so good. I absolutely love this phone, and I record on it more. The camera quality is just amazing in general. What the hell is racing? Alright, anyways. Yeah. Eight and a half out of 10. I'm gonna give it the same rating as the 10R. because of what it was trying to do with the portrait mode shots. I get what it was trying to do, but that's not the main thing I was going for. I was just going for, having, a wide depth of field. I was trying to go a lot more shallow, which is fine, and it looks good, but yeah, it's not what I'm trying to go for here. Okay, real quick, I'm currently editing this vlog, programming change. The part 2 of grading the smartphone photos is going to be in next week's vlog, because this vlog is already really long, and I don't want it to be over an hour, so yeah, just look out for that in next week's vlog, and yeah, that's all I got. Anyways, phone diving adventures ended up going pretty well yesterday. Well, not amazing. One of the bins was absolutely worthless. The other bin didn't pay off super well because it wasn't super crowded there, but we were able to get a couple things out of there, so it all worked out, and I finally got rid of one of my throwaway phones, so it worked out. But I gotta get this vlog edited and get it ready to go, so that is gonna be it for me and vlog 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. Thumbs up button, subscribe button, it's all down below. Links to socials and all that shit are down below. And yeah, that's it for me, and I'll catch you guys next week in vlog 3. Peace.